Guys, what's going on? Welcome to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath, and I am joined by writer, producer, director Lisa Downs for a conversation about the music of 1997. Lisa, what's going on?
You always do the best introductions, so everything is good. And I'm excited to talk about what could possibly be the best year in music ever.
Let's promote right here at the top. You are the director of hold get the glare off. Okay, so Life After Flash, Life After the Navigator, available right now at lifeaftermovies.com. Patches.
You can get patches. Yay!
There's my Navigator patch. I've got a personalized note in here too.
Everyone who orders from the websites gets a personalized note as well. Not to take it away from you. You had a longer note, but
Wait a minute. Everybody gets a note?
I write a note to everyone as a kind of thank you for buying it.
I'm obviously a huge fan of your work. This is your third appearance on Serial at Midnight, which is awesome.
Everyone's like, stop it.
You're part of the crew now. So 1997, we're close to the same age. It was a really groovy year, man. It was a great year for music.
Why was it good? Why did you pick this year for the chat?
I don't know. No, we picked it because I was a senior in high school in 1997. That's the time that you look back on, I guess. There's an area of your life when you look back on it and you're like, well, those were really great days. And looking at the albums of 1997, I don't remember how we got here. You might, and you can tell us, but I was like, we were talking and I was like, yeah, the 1997, you got like, you love Hanson. You're wearing Hanson right now. The band, you're wearing the entire band right now.
I'm wearing the entire band. I wish for real. No. This is a circa 1997 actual shirt that I bought in 97 at Westfield in Sydney. And the thing is that they look, I think I have makeup on them at the top, but they're pretty new because back in the day when you would buy something, I just bought them and I didn't want to wear them. I didn't want to touch them because I didn't want anything to happen to them. So this is actually the second time I've ever worn this shirt, but it is possibly my favorite band. The 97 was really the year that solidified my entry as a teen into chart music. I knew of it a little leading up to it, but before that I had listened to all the oldies, which if you want to check out our oldies chat, I'm sure he could put a card up.
But don't click it. Click it and open it in a new window. Don't leave this video.
So I had kind of been like early high school, I was still listening to the Beach Boys and the Supremes. And then people in my class started to ask, and this was like 94, 95. They were like, do you like grunge or techno? That was the thing. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, but I picked techno. And it wouldn't be because, I love Everclear. So I had started to get an understanding. And then when The Sign came out, Ace of Base, The Sign, was a huge song in our school. That was when I was like, okay, there is kind of something here with this chart music. And then it was 97 that I really took an active interest and started buying modern music. And that was my foray. And that is kind of why I love 97, but also it was a great year, but it was so mixed. You had these amazing R&B artists, but you also had kind of the start of the boy bands as well. And you had all these amazing solo female artists. And it was just this really great, mix in the charts of hip hop and pop, but melodic hip hop, Mace. Where is Mace? He should come back. And it was just this really great mix of all these different forms of music that kind of worked together.
Yeah, it was like you look back on it. I have a list right here in front of me of the top one.
My list too.
It's the top 100 albums. I don't know who decided this, but I mean, almost every single one of them, I could go put on right now, and I'd be like, oh, it's great. Okay, Will Smith. Do you remember how big Will Smith was in 1997? He was, yes, the GOAT. He was the greatest of all time in 1997. Big Willie style.
Going to Miami.
Oh.
Miami.
Uh,
And also, it was a year where you had dances to the songs. Like I think maybe Macarena was the year before, but like all of his Will Smiths, you had the little kind of Men in Black dance, and
yeah.
it was just it was a really great year. And again, like with the albums, I have my album list, but you had like people like Radiohead and then Chemical Brothers in the same charts as En Vogue, and it was this really kind of eclectic year of great music. And I remember my friend really vividly called me up one day and she was like, "Can we just take a minute to appreciate how great music is at the moment?" And this was 97. She's like, "We have like the Spice Girls and Shania Twain and Savage Garden and Hanson. And it's like such just a great year for really happy, brilliant music." And so it was nice to be appreciative of it at the time as well, because it was the year that I first started, when you get a CD and you come home from school and you lie on the bedroom floor and you put the headphones in and you like shut the lights and you got excited about listening to the music. And
I don't remember having it. Like, I remember liking the music and being like, "Oh, have you heard the new?" Like, I loved Radiohead. I think I had a Radiohead sticker on the back of my car. I had Oasis on the back of my car. Radiohead. Um, what I had some.
where do you get the stickers from?
Oh, the local record store, Satori Sound in Mobile, Alabama. Um, that was my. It was by the college, and they had all the cool stuff, and they had bootlegs, and they had like stuff. They'd have like imports from like probably totally unofficial stuff, but you'd be like, "Oh, look, it's the Smashing Pumpkins B sides that we've never heard before in the United States."
How exciting were imports too on that topic? Like you would go into the store and the import would be like the holy grail, like the how how special mine. You take to school the next day and go, it's an
Yeah,
import, you
for
know.
sure. Because like being an Oasis fan, the well, we can. This is we'll tie this into the list. So like the Verve and Oasis, they had these big charting hits, but then there were B like they'd release the single. This feels like a million years ago. This conversation, like they would release the single, and I mean now you just like bloop, bloop, Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. You're like, "Oh, I heard the whole album. It's really good." But you'd release a single, and you could go buy the CD single or the cassette, the single on cassette, and it would have usually it would have additional songs that weren't on the album and weren't on the radio, and it was like it was almost just for you. And some of my favorite Oasis songs are B-sides. And so I think there are songs on on the Verve, the Bittersweet Symphony single. Some of the B-sides on that, like So Sister, is better than some of the songs on the album. And I'm like, why is this not on the record itself?
I was a big fan of buying the singles. I have every Hanson single.
Nice.
Um, and the exciting thing was you would get these kind of B-side tracks on the singles. Or my theory was, apart from Hanson, that I bought everything of theirs anyway. Um, I was like, okay, well, I'll buy two singles, and if I like the third song, then that warrants buying the album. So it was always a good kind of judge, and it just doesn't seem the same now with Spotify, when you can just stream the whole album. And I know that we've kind of had a physical conversation before about physical versus digital, and um, it just doesn't seem the same. But going back to like 97 albums, I'll show you my. But do you remember? I mean, he's still around, Ben Queller. So this was Radish, and they put out this kind of EP. This is a promotional, actually, only from Mercury Records, but it
Ooh.
looks like a single. So Radish was Ben Queller's band at one point, and it's just this really cool kind of indie feeling kind of rock. It almost sounds like he's just sitting in his room with a guitar and he recorded on a laptop, which you wouldn't have done in 97.
Right.
Um, this would be a big choice of mine for 97 as well.
Nice.
My other selection is, can you see it? Johnny
Oh yeah.
Lang. Do you know
There it
Johnny
is.
Lang?
Great
Yeah.
guitar player. Yeah.
He's an incredible guitar player. I think there was something that he's like can't sing anymore, but this was one I vividly remember buying and then going into my bedroom and turning the lights off and putting my headphones on and listening to this album from front to back, and it was a great experience. But if anyone hasn't heard Johnny Lang, You should put Johnny Lang up. But this is essentially the album that changed my life for 97. And I think it's underestimated. Like, so I had a printout of like the top singles of 97.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe it's Billboard. And they turned up at number 12 of the whole year for the highest selling singles of the year, which is pretty impressive, you know, when you're up against, I mean, Jewel. No one can compete with Candle in the Wind, but and P. Diddy with I'll Be Missing You. But, you know, it was they did well, you know, and Brie probably has the same when someone realizes that you like Hanson and they're like, oh, they look like girls. Are they still around? Are they still together? It's like, yes, they're still around. You can go to Hanson.net. They have a fan club. You can join it. They've just got a new album out. So, I mean, life-changing for me in 97. If you had to pick one 97 artist or album that stands out for you, what would it be?
Radiohead, OK Computer. That was a life-changing album because it's the last Radiohead album before they became computers. In fact, the title, it's like, OK Computer, we will turn into robots. It's the last album that has the human guitar element and feels a little bit rooted in Britpop. The music is so, like, it's moving and it's progressive and it's alternative and it, like, I had never heard. Okay, are you familiar with Radiohead's, like, the Bends? So they start in the early 90s, or, you know, early to mid 90s, and it's like Creep, you know, like Creep. It's very straightforward, very kind of that Britpop, that English rock sound that has, you know, the legacy of the Beatles and all this stuff in it. And then with the Bends, which was their next album, 95, I think, it was like they're not even in the same arena anymore. They've left the building, they're down the street. It's like nothing you've ever heard before. And then OK Computer brought in this technological element that they would embrace in a way that I don't love, but I know a lot of people do. But it was the best of the Bends with a new sound that felt. When you're a teenager and something feels kind of artistic, but you get it, and there's like nothing better than that, you're like, this is just for me. And that's how it felt. Like, I'd crank it on my car CD player and I'd just be like, yeah. There's a song called Let Down, and it's them basically channeling U2. But of course it doesn't sound like U2. It sounds like Radiohead, but it's so emotional and moving. The way that I'm talking too much, I'll stop. But it's really emotional. It's a little paranoid. It's artistic. It's progressive. It was just really brave. It's a lot of people's best album of 1997, and I think I'm in that camp.
Do you remember what track number that song was?
I think it's track number 5, but I would have to check.
It's so nice to know track numbers, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you remember the album and you remember like the feeling of going through the photos and the insert book, and you know the track numbers and you know what's coming up next.
We sound so old though.
I
don't know that.
Before the internet.
My back just threw out my vertebrae. But that's why kids are getting into vinyl though, because they like to have the, like, my daughter. I've asked my daughter if she's into vinyl. She's like, a little, which means no. But she does, like, I think there's an appeal of looking at the photos, and with albums and with vinyl, you know, it's like this big. You're like, yeah. Will you tell the story about the
I mean, yeah, it was just, I was quite naive to a lot of those Radiohead style bands. And like when I started university in 2000, you know, I was more of the pop person. And so I met this girl there who was like tartan skirt and red hair and piercings, and she was like super cool. And we were just chatting, and I said, what kind of music do you like? And she's like, oh, I really like Britpop. And I was like, oh my God, me too. I love Steps. I love Five. I love the Spice Girls. And she was like, I meant like Blur and Oasis. And how dare I? But funnily enough though, I was talking Spice World. So good. I'll tell you my Spice World story. This Spice World was 97, wasn't it? The
Yes, it
album
was
came
Spice
out in
World.
97.
Yep.
Um, I went to the cinema, me and my friend. I wasn't allowed to be Baby Spice. I was like, come on, I have blonde hair. I have to be Baby Spice. She had to be Baby Spice. And I ended up being Sporty Spice. And we went dressed up to Macquarie Shopping Centre in Sydney to go and see Spice World. And we didn't pre-book tickets and it was sold out. And we were standing there like Muppets dressed as the Spice Girls. And we were like, please, can we just like sit on the stairs? And they wouldn't let us in. And so we had to spend the whole day shopping dressed as the Spice Girls, not having seen the film. And it was heartbreaking because I obviously couldn't talk about it at school the next day as you do, that I
Yeah.
don't kids do anymore because there's so many things out. But I was a Spice Girls fan. I saw them in concert before the pandemic.
Listen, it's become, listen, Hanson, Spice Girls. It's become very trendy to act like these things weren't cool or weren't huge, but they were, and there's nothing wrong with that. Spice Girl, like I still like the Spice Girls. I mean, I can't say that as a 41-year-old man, I'm gonna go pop the Spice Girls onto the record player or whatever. But I like them. I have fond memories. Like that song, like if you want to be or want to be, that's the name of the song, right? Right. That song was everywhere and it was amazing and we all liked it. Nobody was like, oh no, even the cool kids were like, that's pretty cool. And yeah, the personalities and stuff, like, oh, I like Sporty Spice or I like Posh, but like it was so, I don't know. It was so well done marketing, I guess. And then you mentioned the rise of the boy bands. I never really got super into that, but you're a little bit younger than me, and I think that well, first of all, I don't know a whole lot of boys who were like, oh, I love NSYNC, they're my favorite or whatever. But I mean, there are. And,
And I say boy bands with, I guess, a collective term because Backstreet Boys came out in, I think, 95 was their first single. But in 97, you had Backstreet Boys, but you had Boys to Men, not a boy band, but, these kind of all encompassing. You remember As Yet? Last night. Do you remember As Yet? I'm going to have to, I don't want to sing it, but
I
I'll.
like that though. No, dude, what I don't. That did not sound familiar though. As yet.
As Yet, AZ, and then YET. So they were around. And then, of course, you had 98 Degrees, which were the understated boy band that I had their album, but not many other people did because they were the kind of secondary Backstreet Boys. But there was just, yeah, it was kind of the beginning of that. And then you had the beginning of the Spice Girls coming out. But then you had these really strong, like, you had Meryl Bainbridge and Sheryl Crow and like Sean Colvin and Paula Cole and all these kind of solo female artists, which were amazing at the time. A lot of them one-hit wonders, I think they ended up being. But then you had the really great R&B artists like Brandy and Monica, and Aaliyah was out, and it was just, and then En Vogue, I loved En Vogue, and so it was this really kind of just amazing time for it all. And I think just on your comment about it wasn't really cool to like that kind of music. In my school and my experience, it wasn't. So you had people like me who I was the only one that liked Hanson, or at least admitted that I liked Hanson. I never hid what I enjoyed from people. I just maybe didn't talk about it as much as I would have liked to, but I never denied liking something. And then you had the kind of cooler girls who liked them. They admitted to liking, say, like the Spice Girls, but like in an ironic way. It was like they were liking it because they thought it was uncool, and it became cool to like things that are uncool. But I genuinely loved all that kind of music. And so it was like this disparity between you like feeling guilty and ashamed for liking that kind of music. But
it's always been complicated, I'm sure, but there was something you've touched on it. Every genre kind of coexisted with other genres in a way that like it all sounded different. I'm going to read some of the albums of 1997 here. We don't have to focus on any of them, but Bob Dylan's Time Out of Mind, which was an amazing album. I saw him on that tour. Prodigy, Chemical Brothers, Daft Punk, Blur, the song was everywhere. The Foo Fighters, The Color and the Shape by the Foo Fighters. That was an amazing album. Savage Garden, which sounds...
Yes.
I bet you like them, don't you?
in Australia, if you go to a bar and say you don't like Savage Garden, you will have someone come up to you and go, "Don't mess with the garden. Get out. You can't hate the garden." And it's like they're cherished in Australia, and they're
That's
talented.
crazy. That is what you've just blown my mind.
And also, Silverchair was a great album that year. That I don't know how international were they big
They were
in
big. Yep.
America.
Yep.
Freak Show was the album. Um, Single Silverchair. There's so many. They had Anna's song, which was about his anorexia. Um, wasn't there one just called Freak or Tomorrow?
Yes.
Something about Tomorrow.
I'm gonna cut all of this out. No, just kidding. I no, you're right, but the Silverchair was big. They probably still play Silverchair on the modern rock radio station is all like 96 to 2002. It's like all they play. They're like, and now here's the Offspring. It's like Unter Gleben Glaben Globen.
That was on the because I've got my list of albums too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that was the '97 album, was it? The
Was it?
I think so. I think that was a '97 song. Um, I had their album. I don't have it with me, but Ben Folds was a great band. I think they're still around. And then Janet Jackson had the Velvet Rope album, which was amazing. So, and Mariah Carey. And then you had Everclear. They were on my list. So much for the Afterglow. I have this habit of, tell me if I talk too much. I have this habit of when you get a band like say Everclear or Aerosmith and the earlier music's really kind of rocky and edgy, and then they become, I think Green Day did this too, then they become mainstream and all their original fans go, I'm not listening to them now, they've gone mainstream. I love them when they become mainstream, and that's when I really find myself really getting into their music. So
Please elaborate on that. I would like to hear more about that.
it feels like I don't know if they're more polished, but they feel like they become more melodic. The songs feel like they become easier to listen to,
Yeah.
as opposed to kind of a lot of early 70s music has that kind of raw feel. But it doesn't feel like there's like a solid melody that goes with it, as opposed to what you get in something like Father of Mine, or those kind of songs feel, I guess, polished.
You know what it probably is? It's probably they've gotten more successful and they can hire better producers and they have more time in the studio to find it. That's probably what it is.
But I remember with Green Day particularly, I just found that their songs became really catchier.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because they were told you got to make them more mainstream, make them catchier, make them radio friendly, and maybe that's what it is, and that's what really appeals to me.
Somebody at the company was like, I don't hear a hit, guys. We need a hit.
At least it's not going to buy your album if you stay on this path. You got to.
That's right. This is a perfect time to plug. We're talking about like rock music and Green Day and Everclear. This is a perfect time to talk about a 6-part documentary series that you produced that I think everybody needs to be aware of. We've talked about it before, but let's do it organically. So it's Icon Music Through the Lens is the name, right?
It is. It is.
And it aired in Sky, or it aired on Sky in the UK. And
yeah, and it's coming out soon on PBS in the States. I don't know what the dates are yet, but they just announced it last week. And it's a really amazing series where it celebrates music photography and goes back to what you were saying about this idea that you can come home and look at the photos of an album. And, like for me, that just says, when I look at, I don't know, this is not like a great picture, but the idea that this image instantly transports me to like what I was wearing when I bought the album, what I was thinking, where it was in the store and what I got with it and listening to it. And it just transports you back to this place. And I think that's what's really important about when you get album covers. And so the series celebrates music photography as a whole. So there's an episode on album covers. There's an episode on magazine covers. There's an episode on tour photography, live photography on the road, portraits in general. What does it mean to artists when they have the photo taken, the technicalities of a photographer taking it, how the whole relationship works. And it's a pretty impressive series, and so we interviewed like 90 photographers and artists as well, like Alice Cooper and Graham Nash, and just amazing photographers like Terry O'Neill and Henry Diltz, who we both know as loving spoonful photographers among many. And it's definitely worth seeing if you like music and or photography, because it really blends the two together.
Yeah, it's great. I've seen it. It's wonderful. You know, I don't tell you, like, I don't say things that I don't mean. It's one of my favorite pieces of music documentary preservation ever. I can think of maybe three that I would name, and this is in the top three. It's wonderful. Hopefully, everybody gets a chance to see it. I will spread, like, when we find out about U.S. air dates, I'll spread the news and stuff. But I love it, and thank you. Thank you for being a part of that.
No, well, thank you.
You brought up soundtracks. You want to talk about some soundtracks really quick? Do you have anything you want to hit?
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking of soundtracks, and then I realized that the soundtracks I really love are probably like either side of 97, because Romeo and Juliet was like 96, and then Cruel Intentions is the year like 99. I don't have any soundtracks on my,
Okay.
but having said that, Men in Black was a soundtrack that I owned because I won it from a radio station, because I had gone in for so many Hanson competitions and lost. They sent me a Men in Black soundtrack as a thanks for listening
Wow.
prize. So I remember receiving the Men in Black soundtrack in the mail. So I do have strong memories of the Men in Black soundtrack, which was it was a good solid soundtrack. And I hadn't seen the film, but it was a great soundtrack.
Have you seen the film now?
Yes. A while ago, so don't ask me questions about it.
No. But it's just like, what if you've been like, I still haven't watched it?
Yeah, Romeo and Michelle had a good soundtrack.
Yes, it did.
That is a film that you like.
I love Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion.
Did show a photo of. I don't have any. I couldn't find any physical photos because they're all in the garage. But you can show my. Take a photo.
That's a great. No, well, I'll throw because I got the photo of you and I've got the photo of me, and mine is like yours is fine. Yours looks like you just look like a night.
If you're gonna put your picture on the screen now of Heath in '97, set up, because I saw it and I was like, so many questions come out of this photo. I don't even know where to start. Like, I'm impressed. I'm a little worried. Like, so just set the scene for this Heath in '97 photo.
All of those reactions are appropriate. I don't really remember 17-year-old brain. Who can, like, I don't want to go back to that, but I just remember loving Oasis, and I loved these bands that loved the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan. Like, that was the roots. It was all about my roots, man. And so I was like, Be Here Now had just come out from Oasis, and they had done an album cover that was like, it was like the Be Here Now album cover is a little bit like, I think there's Who, the homages to the Who. I think there's homages to Bob Dylan, to George Harrison's All Things Must Pass, because you got a guy like in a seat and there's like albums and like I was like, I can do this. I've got a reel-to-reel 2-track. I think it was maybe it was a 4-track. I think it was a 2-track recorder, because I was a musician, you know. And that's right. And I had, it's Let It Be and Nashville Skyline, I think, is the albums in the.
So, I mean, did you, like, why did you pick those specific? Did you spend the week up to the photo shoot going, what albums are gonna sit again?
I honestly don't remember that. I probably not, but maybe. I remember feeling that they reflected who I was. And so I go outside in
the woods. You're just a musician in the woods in '97.
As musicians are often in the woods.
I think it's a brilliant picture, and I think it's a brilliant representation of '97.
Well, that's very kind of you. It's as silly as it can be, and it's embarrassing, but it's fun, and it shows how I was so earnest in that picture. I was just like, I think they're round rim sunglasses. Everybody's seen it by now, but it's just like, oh, but
they were like the sunglasses. They were something like Taya Leone would wear. Like they were solid 90s glasses. I had the colored ones and a bucket hat.
I'm all about the bucket hats. I still rock bucket hats. I should have worn a bucket hat for this video.
I don't. I was gonna buy a bucket hat, but I didn't.
They're back.
They're back. Kendall Jenner was seen wearing a bucket hat. So
Well,
I guess they're back.
hashtag ad.
I know.
What else do you want to talk? Do you have anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
No, I think I kind of like chatted about because we didn't really have anything, specific. It was just a vibe of the time, and I feel like we vibed the time.
Yeah.
Well.
Let's shout out a few more. So we don't have to talk about it, but U2's Pop came out. Tupac, Are You Still Down? Limp Bizkit. I don't know that I want to remember Limp Bizkit, but maybe it had a place. Rammstein.
Is that Limp Bizkit?
Do you remember? No. Do you remember Rammstein? They were this. It was like.
Yes. Rammstein.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Rammstein. I never listened to them. I have to.
They ended up on the Matrix soundtrack, and I think that's where a lot of people discovered them. But then that song was the Du Hasme song was all over MTV here, so maybe that. Oh, Chumbawamba, Tub Thumper.
I bought the single.
I'll get knocked down.
What a great song! So there were a couple of bonus mentions that I thought were like, and really from one hit wonders, I guess. Like, remember how big Semi Charm Life was by Third Eye Blind?
Yep.
That was a great song. That was another one that I was going to say that was close to 97 that was great. Like when movies have that one song. I mean, yes, you've got like Titanic, which was 97 with Celine Dion. But like Cities of Angels with Goo Goo Dolls. And then, great song. Meredith Brooks, Bitch. I don't know if you swear on your show.
Whatever you want to say.
Remember Coco Jumbo, Mr. President?
I don't know if that.
Remember that song? Everyone has to Google Coco Jumbo with a catchy song. And then even though the Romeo and Juliet was out the year before, Loveful Cardigans was a good single in 97. Yeah.
Great song.
So that's where the good balance is, because like Jules' album came out in 96, but Foolish Games was a 97 single. So there were a few crossovers, which were solid, and Cardigans was a solid crossover. Same with Celine Dion. Her album came out in 96, but It's All Coming Back to Me Now was a single in 97, as was Don't Speak, I believe, no doubt, even though Tragic Kingdom was earlier. It was a good year for singles of earlier albums.
Do you remember, or did you like Natalie Imbruglia's Left of Center that had the song Torn? Do you remember Torn?
I did not listen to the whole album. I remember Torn loving it and it being huge. But then didn't she have a second single where it didn't quite follow a structure? I remember she spoke about it. She was like, I didn't want the kind of verse, chorus, bridge, chorus two. It was this weird kind of, and it flopped, I think. So I didn't go and buy the album on the basis of my 3 songs of buying singles equals the cost of an album. So I didn't hear the whole album.
That was smart. You made the right decision.
Was it not very good?
No. It had one good song on it.
I think it's hard when you have a song that big to... I mean, you've got to have... Shania Twain is probably the only artist that doesn't really have filler songs. And her Come On Over, which was either 97 or around 97. Like, it was on the charts for like a year, so it probably ended up in 97. But it must be really hard when you have such a big song and then you have to follow it up on an album with 11 other sons.
Yeah. I think that album had... The Shania album had like 12 singles here. I mean, it was just endless hits.
It was amazing. I just bought... This was in early 2000s, so it's slightly off topic, but I just bought the Up CD because I found it for a pound. I'm in England. A pound. In the charity store, and it's got 19 songs, and it has been on my car on loop for like the last 3 days.
Nice.
It's the most incredible. Like every song is a hit, but it's hard to do that. So yeah, there was but I was a big fan of Torn and Natalie Imbruglia, but
yeah, it's a great song. Okay, I've been told that I need to talk about. I just mentioned this is Bree's honorable mentions. We have to talk about Bjork. I don't remember the name of the album that came but Bjork had an album, and I was told to talk about it.
Yeah, and I can't remember the name, but she did.
That's the one that has all is
So quiet.
No, I don't think that. Maybe it is, but I don't. What's the one? It's like all is. All is. All that.
There are so many takeaways for people from this. They'd be like Silverchair there was some song and Bjork. Right.
I can put it in post. I'll just like put a name.
Silverchair was Tomorrow. I'm sure Tomorrow was the main.
That sounds right.
Sounds right. But Bjork, I don't actually own any of her albums.
All right, this has been a blast. So we want to invite the viewer to continue the conversation in the comments below, because we've only talked about. I mean, we've really just scratched the surface. There's so many albums from 1997 that are so good. So continue the conversation, and we also want you to go check out Lisa's many creative output. So you know what, I'm gonna let you do it. Tell everybody where you want them to go and what you want them to subscribe to.
You'd be like life after okay. lifeaftermovies.com is where you can buy the region free Blu-rays and the patches, so they'll play anywhere in the world and we ship everywhere. Available now, and also there are signed Joey Kramer Navigator discs available on the website. And you can also, if you want to see some interviews with people, the web show is a YouTube channel that I have. It's a fledgling channel, but it's a YouTube channel that has lots of fun, nostalgic interviews.
That's such a soft sell. Hit it hard. You've talked. Okay, Bob Gale. Tell people who you've talked to at the web show.
We have interviewed Brian May, Bob Gale, Keith Coogan, Claudia Wells, Noah Hathaway, because he is the star of our next Life After Trade. Obviously, Joey Kramer from Flight of the Navigator, Flash Gordon, Folk, Sam J. Jones, Melody Anderson, Brian Blessed, and a few others.
It's an amazing channel, and what I love about it is your production value. I mean, it's the filmmaker quality that you bring to your actual documentaries. You've carried that over to a YouTube channel. So I mean, it's done to the nines is like the way I want to describe it. It's so well produced. It's such high production value, and you really do approach it with a filmmaker's eye. So it's like a filmmaker with a YouTube channel. It's amazing. So everybody needs to, you know what? I'll put a link. I'll put a little pop up at the end of this video so you can just click straight through and go subscribe. And I'll put in the description of this video too, as well as our conversation about oldies music, the music of the 60s and the 70s, and you know what? And you were here talking about the Life After the Navigator documentary too, so I'll link that down there too.
I was good, and hopefully no one's like, stop asking Lisa to come on, so there'll be a fourth chat at some point.
I have heard nothing but positive feedback about your appearances on Serial at Midnight. Everybody loves what you have to say. You're a delightful human being. Lisa, thank you for being here to talk about music with me. This has been so much fun and a blast, and I appreciate your time.
You are very welcome.
Guys, thank you for your time. As I say, continue the conversation. Go like, subscribe to all the places we've just told you about, and go listen to some music from 1997. Thank you so much. Take care. Until next time, we will catch you later.
And cut.